Promise.
Unless we get to.
Yeah, that's right. Jumping jacks, everybody.
Thank you, no.
Good morning.
More than I.
So when I worked at Guilford College, I had the distinct pleasure of participating in a faculty writing workshop led by none other than the Quaker singer-songwriter Carrie Newcomer.
Ah,
It was awesome. We can talk about it later. But at
Name dropper.
one point in the workshop, Carrie pulled out several novels from her bag, one by one, and opened them to their most pivotal scene. That moment in a story where everything finally shifts. That place where what has been building slowly peaks and everything kind of releases. And as readers, we know that from that point on, we're heading toward a resolution in the story. Well, when Carrie piled the books on the table beside of her, the bookmark stacked proved her observation that each turning point fell in the middle of the book, not at the end, but somewhere near the center. In what my high school English teacher, bless her heart, Mrs. Brookbank, called denouement. And denouement is a fancy French word for untying or untangling a knot. In a story, it's where the central tension breaks open and something new becomes possible. So I was reminded of Carrie's lesson as I prepared for this week's message. As we return yet again to the story of the Samaritan woman and Jesus by Jacob's well, I'm sure y'all were like, wow, haven't they left yet? we are plowing through these verses, but right after the ones that we've delved into the past couple of weeks, there's a denouement tucked subtly right in the middle of our text. The place where the conversation between these two people reaches its own turning point. For me, it contains such a surprisingly powerful message. I don't remember ever reading it like I read it this time. It's the very reason I felt compelled to offer this series in the first place. What Jesus tells the Samaritan woman at this point, it doesn't tie things up in what I call a Pollyanna bow, a big blue silky ribbon. It doesn't make the ending nice and neat. To me, it just actually breaks everything wide open. In some way, maybe poetic for the person who wrote the story, Jesus circles back to the questions that the Samaritan woman had asked earlier. If you remember, she's like, who, what, how, where? But his words about worship, about spirit and truth, about who has access to the living water and how. This is the moment when all the water jars and all our old containers for God are cracked apart. The living water finally pours forth. The surprise to me is that Jesus says it is here now and is available to everyone, including her, including us. Let's pick up the text from where we left off last week at John 4:19. Again, the Message Bible. Right after Jesus has acknowledged the Samaritan woman's honesty and added, yes, in fact, you've had 5 husbands and you're living with someone who's not your husband. She says back to him, oh, so you're a prophet. Not a question, but an exclamation. Well, tell me this. Our ancestors worshipped the Hebrew God at this mountain, Mount Gerizim. But you Jews insist that Mount Zion, Jerusalem, is the only place for worship. Right? That's a snag right there. But Jesus replies, believe me, woman, the time is coming when you Samaritans will worship God neither here at this mountain nor there in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We Jews worship what we do know. For salvation springs from the lineage of the Jews. And here's our denouement. But the time is coming. No, in fact, the time is now here, when what you are called and how will not matter. What you are called will not matter. And where you go to worship will not matter. It's who you are and how you live that count before God. Your worship must engage your authentic spirit in the pursuit of truth. These are the kind of people God is looking out for. Those who are simply and honestly themselves before God. God is sheer being itself. God is spirit. Those who worship God must do so out of their very being, their spirits, their authentic selves in adoration. The woman responded, well, I don't know about that. It was a lot. I do know that the one who is called Christ, the Tereb, the teacher, the prophet, the Messiah, is coming. When the Messiah gets here, we'll get the whole story. And Jesus said, I am he. I am the Messiah you speak of. You don't have to wait any longer or look any further. Jesus just doesn't answer her question. He untangles it. The time is coming. No, wait. In fact, it is here. Now. No temples, no mountains, no proper name, no elite social status, and I like to add no denominations, no religions, no political status either. What matters is not where or how we worship, but who we are when we do so. Worship is now transformed by Jesus from ritual to relationship. Not a location, but an entire way of being. To me, this is a stunning reversal early in Jesus' ministry. Jesus has broken apart all the barriers between Jew or Samaritan, male or female, sacred or secular, clean, unclean, all of those arguments. The well of living water now flows freely to all. Despite the fact that countless people and systems have tried to glue back together all those divisive barriers over the centuries, The truth in Jesus' words remain. As he called it earlier, it is an artesian spring gushing from within. And then I hear the commercial. But wait, there's more. Jesus adds, not only are we humans seeking God, he declares God is already seeking us. God is out looking for people like this. God is meeting us right where we are. The living presence isn't waiting for us to arrive at the right mountain or get there with the right belief. The holy presence is already out looking for us, already drawing near to us, flowing toward us, flowing within us. Worship then is not a place, but where mutual seeking happens, where spirit finds spirit, where truth meets truth. And then, as if to confirm the immensity of all his words, Jesus goes on to reveal himself as the I am. His exact words, I am, echo all the way back to the burning bush, back to when Moses heard the voice of the Holy One saying, I am who I am. The same presence that spoke to Moses is now present to the Samaritan woman, someone who is so excluded by every religious and social measure of the time that we don't even know her name. The biggest surprise to me is in this passage that Jesus' words are the very heart of the gospel itself. I feel like he could have just stopped right there and let it go organically. He speaks the pithy truth that the Spirit of God is uncontainable. Spirit flows beyond boundary and border, beyond ethnicity and doctrine, beyond race, label, status, and station. It moves beyond country, buildings, scriptures, and tribes, from mountain to temple to heart. The same Spirit that spoke to Moses and to this woman speaks within us still, calling us away from religion that's hollow or dutiful or restrictive and toward a worship that is alive and authentic, inward and inclusive. Although Jesus anchors the living water in his own Jewish tradition, he does not allow it to dictate who may or may not have access to the living water. Jesus' invitation is simple, but it ain't easy. Many of us carry traditions of faith all the way back to childhood and beyond. They are beautiful in their innocence, but perhaps not deeply examined. Just as the Samaritans closed themselves off to the Hebrew prophets so that they wouldn't be influenced in order to protect the beliefs they had inherited. But what happens when our early, unexamined fragments of faith can no longer hold the weight of our questions and our pain, our struggles, or even our personal encounters with grace? Jesus invites us to move from place-based religion to presence-based relationship. For worship that is not contained within a rigid routine, but keeps a continual openness, grounded in a close relationship with the divine. For worship that is equally heart-centered and head-centered. How can we cultivate a deeper relationship with God that transcends constraint and hollow habits? We can't just go through the motions if we intend to have a genuine relationship with Spirit that is free from confinement. So what does it mean to worship in spirit and in truth? Worship in spirit and truth means living outward from that inward spring. To let our worship come from personal acts of integrity, compassion, and openness. It means showing up as our whole selves, our doubts, our gratitude, our contradictions, our questions, and trusting that the same Spirit who met the Samaritan woman meets us where we are and how we are. It means letting our lives, our choices, our relationships, our compassions become vessels for the living water. That's what early friends meant, I think, by that of God in everyone. The light, the Spirit, the living water is not dispensed by clergy, church, or creed.
Amen.
It is within and among each of us and flows from us into our daily lives. It also means trusting that wherever we sincerely seek truth, God's already there. The Samaritan woman came to the well seeking water to replenish her body. She leaves instead with the spring of living water to restore her soul. The conversation begins with thirst and ends with revelation that the living water is present, here, now, within. May we too come to see that the well isn't only in Samaria, nor is it just in this meeting place, but it is within and among each of us, greeting us when we genuinely seek in spirit and in truth. May we open ourselves to its living water, uncontained, unending, freely flowing through the truth of who we are and out into the world, available to all who deeply thirst. And so it is. Amen.